All right, we're back. Q&A with Real.
The dreaded Q&A.
The dreaded Q&A. We're going to ask some very, very important questions that everybody hopefully want to know the answers to. Okay. Sports you played in high school?
Football was my path. Well, actually, my number one thing was I wanted to make the '84 Olympics as a sprinter, and I played pretty much every sport you could imagine. But here's a little funny side bit that people don't know. I ran barefoot until I was grade 8. I got my first pair of track spikes, and it was just because, you know, I had a single mom. She did everything she could for me, but, you know, having that expensive pair of spikes wasn't an option. And still with that, I held almost every record, you know, running bare feet and long jump, triple jump, all that.
What was your best event?
100 meters and 10.49 at 13, and then I pulled my hamstring because I didn't stretch. And so, if your coach tells you to stretch, Yeah.
Now, we talk a lot about some of your motivations in life and how we want to help people. What are your most inspirational people? What are the people that you've seen do things that you look to as sources of inspiration?
Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, my mom, and my dad, who I consider my dad, who's always been there, not my birth dad. But, you know, Abraham Lincoln, we wouldn't be standing here talking if it wasn't for him. I don't know if well, if people don't know this, they should know this. Abraham Lincoln probably failed more than anybody else in his life. And, you know, on her dying deathbed, his mom said, you can be anything you want to be. So he ended up being our president, one of the best presidents ever. You know, Martin Luther King, that's a man I have so much respect for, so much admiration. A lot of times I try to tell my students, or back when I used to have my studio and stuff, when I'm talking about goal setting, because I'm always telling them to set goals, I'd always say, think about this. I said, you know, especially being a father of 3, I said, think about this. I said, if you don't think for a moment that Martin Luther King, every time he said goodbye to his 3 beautiful kids and his wife, that he didn't know that that could be the last time that he saw them.
Right.
But he was so passionate about making a difference, that he knew would make a difference for others, that he was willing to take the sacrifice. So that to me is huge. And then of course my mom, who told me to dream big, and my dad. So, yeah.
What, as growing up, and you've talked about this before, where did you find the source and the motivation to dream the things that you've dreamed about and to accomplish the things that you've accomplished?
Well, you know, I definitely have to say it was my mom, and actually my football coach, and you know, because Martin Luther and Abraham Lincoln came later in my life, I didn't really know who they were coming up. But my mom always told me to dream big, as far back as I can remember. She always told me I could be anything I wanted to be, and always instilled that in me and tried to support me in any way I can. And when I was in grade 10, I had a football coach, and at that time we got to the point where we were champions. You know, you get to play championships and go and play in the big stadium. And we were playing a team that, I mean, as I remember, maybe they weren't, but I remember them as big as you and me. Right. And we were small. We were pretty happy with second place because we were pretty much defeated, you know. And our football coach came in the locker room and he gave us this speech about can't. That there's no such word as can't. Erase it from your vocabulary. If you see it, you can believe it, you can do it, and go out there and hit like you've never hit before, and block like you've never blocked before, catch passes that you've just never caught before. And you know what? 2 things happened. One was I erased that word C-A-N-T from my vocabulary. Right. You know, if you ask my kids, they'll say not able, they'll correct you. And we also won. And that was a pivotal time for me, because what happened is I started playing little games, if you will. I started saying, okay, let me do this goal where I say, I'm going to bench 200 pounds, when I could only bench 150. And then I did it. And then I try another challenge, and I kept setting challenges little, and they got bigger and bigger and bigger, like things like where, you know, as I grew up, I said, well, I'm going to be the first African-American model in Canada. Never before done. No such thing as an African-American model. As life came on, the best thing you could say to me was say, you can't do that. I'd be like, okay. And that really fueled me, and it made a huge difference in my life.
Well, you started as an actor. what made you want to become an actor? Or those of you, before I ask this question, those of you who don't know, his most famed character is Lieutenant Taggart at General Hospital. You know, the one-time heartthrob at General Hospital.
The one-time heartthrob. Oh, that's good.
All right, well, the older heartthrob now. But what made you get into acting as a profession?
You know, it's what happened. That's a great question. I actually had no aspiration to be an actor. I was the high school jock. My girlfriend at the time was actually the drama queen. She was going to be the next Hollywood movie star. I was going to be the next NFL, you know, superstar. And what happened is Hollywood North was growing in Vancouver, Canada at the time. They came to town to do a movie called Harry Tracy Last Desperado. They needed a young African-American actor, and they went around to the different schools, and they brought in 3 of us. We auditioned. I got the part. It ended up on the cutting room floor. I wasn't, and here's the funny thing, my mom recently was digging through some stuff and she found my first contract, my first call sheet, my first paycheck. And this was in 1981, so it's not that far back. But they said, you know, on the contract, on the call sheet, it said Rael Johnson, which was my name back then, and the character was Black Boy. You know?
Unbelievable.
Yeah, right? And which would never fly. And
never fly.
Yeah, and then I had a black stunt double, which inspired me to be the first African-American stuntman, because I remember I had this role in Out Comes This Guy. I had hair back then. He comes out in this wig. I mean, it was like unbelievable. Like,
but it's the 80s.
Yeah, right? In the 80s. A wig, and they had black makeup on him. Right? Yeah. And, but what had happened, what really inspired me to become an actor, the transition was, my initial dream was to make the '84 Olympics. And then when I was 13, 14, I pulled my hamstring. And it never ever was the same again. I never was running like I was supposed to. And then I was doing this acting thing, and I was starting to make some money, and then some real good money, and then it came to the part of my life where I said, well, maybe I'll make it to the Olympics, and maybe I'll win a gold medal, and maybe I'll get these endorsements. And I said, well, I'm doing this, and I'm getting paid, and I'm making real good money. Right. So that's when I decided to, and then being the, how do you say, the disciplinarian that I am at that point, that's when I decided to move to Hollywood and get serious and immerse myself in classes and get serious about it.